We got to be better. We're playing 500 right now.
The Royals won today. You guys, there's 22 games left.
We're playing 500 baseball. Talking about the Royals and the Twins and everybody else, it doesn't matter. We're playing 500 baseball.
Too much now to overcome?
It's not too much, but we're playing 500 baseball.
That pretty much tells you everything you need to know. An agitated Alex Cora after last night's game in New York. Rightfully so, if you ask me. When I say rightfully so, I'm talking about the whole picture. I'm talking about the whole thing with the Red Sox. 500 club, 70-70. Exactly 70-70 after 140 games. And I would say fading from the playoff landscape in the American League. It's really worse than that. Plummeting out of the playoff picture. 22 games to go. It would take a miracle to get them in the playoffs now. I know I only said this a day ago. It's not over yet. Even I'm having a hard time believing that now. When you lose 3 in a row at the Mets, and the Mets are a loser franchise, I know they've been playing better. I get it. They're in the playoff race. I understand all that. But if you are going to be one of these teams that is going to be in the race, if you're going to be a club that's in it, you got to take at least a game in New York. And I thought there was an opening for it last night. For those of you that didn't see the game, quickly, Red Sox give up 4 in the first inning. Tanner Houck gives up a grand slam. In the very next inning, they score 3, and they make it 4-3. It stayed that way into the 8th. When Kenley Jansen and, I'm drawing a blank, Rich Hill combined for 5 walks, 3 of them with the bases loaded, trigger a 4-run rally for the Mets, who go on to win going away. And for the series, the Red Sox scored 6 runs. 6 runs, outscored 19-6. Now the Red Sox again plummeting out of the race, collapsing again after the All-Star break. And we can debate whether or not you believe in the moves or not. They were half-assed moves, but even so, the Red Sox spiraling out of the race. And Cora, how many times did he call them a 500 club in this? And again, usually you say, how's this team this year? 500, not bad. Yeah, okay. But 500 here in Boston, 500 has a negative connotation. Again, listen to Cora. The first guy, who asked the question about, the overall comment on where the team is, and the questions go in and out a little bit because the microphone is obviously moving back and forth from Cora to the people asking the questions, what have you, but you can make it out. The first guy can't even get the question out, and Cora cuts him off.
Alex, time is running out. How do you feel about this team right now as you...
We're a 500 team.
Huh?
We're playing 500 baseball. I don't think that's good enough. We got to be better. We're playing 500 right now.
The Royals won today. You guys, there's 22 games left.
We're playing 500 baseball. Talking about the Royals and the Twins and everybody else, it doesn't matter. We're playing 500 baseball.
Too much now to overcome?
It's not too much, but we're playing 500 baseball.
He was pissed. Again, 500 is embarrassing. 500 is not... typically, again, you can look at 500 in a lot of places. They'd love to be 500 in Chicago. The White Sox, I mean. The 500 in Tampa this year. 500 where else? Detroit's basically a 500 team. A lot of places would take 500 and treat it as a positive. Not here. And you shouldn't. I'm not telling you should. I'm telling you that here, massive underachievement. And you know what? This has been going on way too long. Way too long. In 2019, the Red Sox went 84-78. They've gone 78-84 each of the last 2 years. Along the way there, they did have 1 year in which they made it to the American League Championship Series, but that was a 91-win team. Not like it was a 98-win team or a 100-win team. That was a 91-win team that sneaked into the playoffs on the final weekend of the season and wanted to blow it in the second half. So when Alex Cora says we're a 500 team, and won't let someone even get the question out of their mouths. He is not saying it, obviously, with any sort of positive slant. Don't even ask me about the Twins and the Royals and anybody else. We're a 500 team. 500's not getting it done. There's no point in scoreboard watching when we're a 500 team. And this stat has been used from time to time, but I'll recycle it. Since the start of that 2019 season. Okay, so this now includes 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. 6 full seasons. 6. The Red Sox are 426 and 422. They are basically a 500 team over a 6-year stretch. And I know they reset after every season, but I do think that it's relevant in this particular conversation because that team in 2021, we weren't sure that team was good enough either. They kind of overachieved a little bit. They picked up Kyle Schwarber at the deadline. I'd like to get to Kyle Schwarber too shortly. He had 3 home runs the other night. I meant to do this yesterday and I forgot. So let me write a note to myself before I forget. Kyle Schwarber. Okay. 500 team for 6 years. You tell me. Is that good enough? And does the end of this season undo what felt like some progress in the middle of it? Because I think it does. It's hard not to have a bad taste in your mouth with the way this thing is going down, despite what happened earlier in the year. There may have been some signs earlier in the year that the Red Sox might have been turning a corner or a hint that they were heading in the right direction. Who do you blame? Is it still ownership and management? Do you blame Cora? I started taking flack today from some of the listeners who say that I'm not critical enough of Alex Cora. I feel like Cora's attitude really kind of went in down the dumper the last couple of years. This year it was better. But last night, here's one of the things that should alarm you. Maybe it shouldn't. I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. In the 8th inning of that game, it's a 3-2 game. Kenley Jansen comes in a non-save situation. Basically walks the bases loaded and then walks in a run. Walks 3 guys, comes out of the game. He gave up 1 hit in the middle in there. Cora goes to Rich Hill. Rich Hill comes in the game, walks the first guy in 4 pitches, and then walks another one. The Red Sox give up 4 runs in the inning, 3 of them on walks with the bases loaded, committed by 2 guys who have been in the big leagues combined for how many years and are about 80 years old. As I said earlier, Kenley Jansen, and Rich Hill, they get to play from the blue tees. They get to play from the senior tees. You can't blame youth or inexperience for the inability of Kenley Jansen and Rich Hill to throw strikes. Who do you blame on that one? How do you explain it? And dare I tell you or remind you that last night, the night before, Chris Martin came in. He had trouble throwing strikes. He got pounded when he did throw strikes. He's also been around the big leagues for a long time. So the failures of the last couple of nights, at least in the late innings, that's a Justin Slayton, who was a Rule 5 pickup. No, these guys have been in the big leagues, which means either they don't think the team has a chance and they checked out, or they're worn down and beaten up, which might be the case, or they're just not that good anymore. What a freaking collapse, again, by the Red Sox. What a collapse. And when you look at it and say, how does this thing get fixed in the long term? What's going to change between now and the beginning of next season? I know what your answers are going to be. And I would say, just be careful about wanting too much too soon from some of these young guys And I'll keep asking rather the same question that I have asked since the beginning of the season. Where's the pitching going to come from? Where's it going to come from? You're not going to get any appreciable upgrades from inside your system. Maybe you think Bayo will be better next year. Maybe you think Houck can go deeper into the season. Cutter Crawford's going the wrong way. So I don't know how much better some of the guys who are on the staff can get. It felt to me like they took a big jump early in the year. Bayo can certainly improve. Last year was a good pitching market. You didn't get any of those guys. You don't have any pitchers coming up from your system. How's it going to get better? 617-779-0985. We'll take your calls throughout the entirety of the baseball hour tonight. I got a couple of other things I want to get to. Something Jared Carabas said last night that relates to last year. Relates to next year. And Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber, the Red Sox don't get enough criticism for their decision on Kyle Schwarber. I'll explain when we come back on the baseball.
One down, the bases loaded in one moment. 3-0, and that is ball four, and that's going to force in another run. Iglesias will score. Red Sox have walked 4 men in the eighth to make it 6-3. And that's going to be ball four, and that'll bring in yet another run. The third bases loaded walk in the inning for Boston. In a game that is just dying on the vine, 7-3 Mets.
Can't emphasize this part enough. Kenley Jansen and Rich Hill. They're both veteran guys. These guys have both pitched in big spots, been around a long time. They can't throw a strike in the eighth inning. And if you watch the game, and I know a lot of you didn't, and I'm not blaming you. Believe me, I am not blaming you. Why would you? Team's falling apart again. Same old Red Sox. Same crap. They've been a 500 team for 6 years. 6 years they have played, again, I'll give you the numbers. They have played 848 games in 6 years. They're 426 and 422. It's unbelievable. 70 and 70 this year, same garbage. And in that time, they've spent about $1.25 billion on the payroll. More. In that neighborhood. So they're not spending like they used to, and certainly not in the last few years, or couple, anyway, at least. Even when they were, in a lot of those years, average. They just can't get it right. Can't get it right. No matter what they spend, comes out the same. And again, you tell me, how's it going to change going into next year? Frank in Boston. Frank, what do you got?
Yeah, hey, I didn't know 17 and 28 since the break is playing 500 baseball right now, but that must be the new math. Anyway.
Just quickly, I agree. The way Cora said it, what Cora really meant to say is we are now a 500 team. When he says, we are a 500 team now, I think it suggests that they're not playing 500 baseball. They're playing sub 500 for a long time. Go ahead.
Yeah, so all of the Mets are historically a loser franchise, as you stated. Things are changing there. I think the Mets series showed a sharp organizational contrast. They have a new owner that really cares, wants to win, and is spending what it takes. And because of that, he was able to hire the best available GM in baseball in David Stern, who immediately righted the ship after the bad year. I'm not sure the last time John Henry was at a game and the last time he talked about the Sox, he sounded indifferent and called them an asset. The Red Sox, in contrast, and I think this is the problem, they can't get anyone good to come and work in the front office. Their own people wouldn't even interview for the job. The Mets are trying to what the Red Sox used to be in Henry's early years. It starts at the top and it flows through. An organization can only be as good as the people they hire and the organizational structure and the culture they have in place, both management and the players. So the series, in my mind, was about more than a sweep. It was about two organizations headed in very different directions. So I personally think the problem starts at the top, and it's going to be neat to fix from the top. But I'm curious what you think.
Okay, so Frank, look, again, you make a good point about Stearns, and it's one thing to say that you want to go out and get players. It's hard to lure players to Boston when the team isn't very good. They couldn't even lure a GM. This should concern you. And I know that, Red Sox ownership and management doesn't want to, and I mean upper management, they don't want to look at the reality and say, well, people are turning us down, or that there is now a stigma attached to the brand because of the way it's been run in the last several years or what have you. But the facts are the facts. People took themselves out of contention for the job of GM. Other people just didn't want to get involved at all. So what did they run, like 10 deep on that list? It's not a coveted organization anymore. The last several years have stained the organization. From the constant turnover at GM or what have you, to the inability to bring pitching into the organization. And again, I'm not blaming Brezzo necessarily for that because he just jumped in now. But it's not just about convincing players to come. They can't convince executives to come. At least the Mets were able to do that. Justin in Shrewsbury. Go ahead, Justin.
Hey, Mazz, thanks for taking my call. I really like the caller's point kind of comparing the two franchises going in different directions. And, that series over the past few days was a huge series for both teams. And the Red Sox just went in there and kind of rolled over and let the Mets, kind of take it. And, I really, really hope that if this doesn't leave a bad taste in our mouths like the end of last season, kind of answer your question at the beginning, I feel like it definitely will, because I feel like we'll go into the same, thought process and vibes around the team as we were last season, and that'll just carry over into next year. And this ownership group and this management, they seem like they're just looking forward to next year. We've been hearing that for the past 2-3 years, and I feel like they're going to be doing the same thing, just kicking the tire down the road. So hopefully, this is a wake-up call for them going into this offseason. They actually make some, impact players and, get some changes for a better season next year.
Yeah, I just don't know. How long can you keep taking the cheese on next year? I mean, how long are we going to keep doing that? So a couple of years ago, I thought they were going to be more aggressive during the offseason. They weren't. Then this past year, good pitching market, the prospects are getting a little bit closer. Now would be a good time to go out and get some pitching. They didn't. Maybe they tried. I don't know. But the prices were so exorbitant, they didn't want to go to the levels they could have maybe on Yamamoto, or even if they did, they weren't good enough to get the pitcher to come here. What's the difference? We had the same discussion about the Patriots today. Either way, you end up in the same place. So now they're different. Don't get me wrong. You look at it and say, well, wait a minute. If they're bad, then they have to overpay guys to come. True. But if they try to overpay guys, and I'm not saying they did, and they still couldn't get the players, well, then now you can't even fix it with money. You've let it deteriorate so badly that players would pick other places, several of them, before they pick you. They'll take something close to the same money in another place to be in a better market with a better team. They will do that. Either way, you come back to the same thing. Either you don't want to overpay through the nose to get them to come, which you now have to do, or you did try to overpay and they said no. In which case, you're still to blame because you let it deteriorate so badly that you can't even pay guys to come. That is a scary proposition. And again, the same type of thing may be going on with the Patriots. So they're sort of living parallel lives, the Red Sox and the Patriots are. But man, this organization might not be as close to competing again as you think. Now, the prospects at AAA, 6 prospects in the top 100 of Baseball America, according to recent reports, and I haven't seen the actual list, but, I could easily log on right now and see it. No one's going to dispute that. 6 in the top 100. Good. None of them are pitchers. None. All positional guys, the large majority of whom bat left-handed. Coming into this season, you needed starting pitching overall, really, and a right-handed bat. None of those are coming through that door. Now what? Jared Carabas actually addressed this briefly last night when he was here. We'll play for you the answer that he gave about the prognosis for the Red Sox. We'll tell you that what. So this is another one, too. The Red Sox will spend when they're ready to compete for championships again. Right? And Jared says when they bring these guys up. Jimmy, is it realistic to think that when these guys get up to the big leagues, and I'm talking now about Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, Kyle Teal, that they are going to be like all-star caliber players right out of the gate? Is that realistic?
It's not realistic.
Okay, so it's going to take a little while, right?
Yeah, you could have a Dustin Pedroia situation where it took really like 400 at-bats before he even made an impact. He didn't hit well in September, and then he didn't really hit well, and that's why Alex Cora was here to spell him and help him out. But it might take 300-400 at-bats before they make an offensive impact.
Okay, for example, Tristan Casas in his first year was not really a huge factor. Jacoby Ellsbury was not really a huge factor.
But you could also get the other side of it is they come up here like a Phil Plantier or an Eric Wedge, and I know I'm dating myself to 91, where they hit 300, and it's like, oh my God, we have the future left fielder and catcher, and then they die out and they get traded for Jose Menendez.
Right. They fizzle out, and or they don't develop is what you're getting at. They don't turn into the players you thought. So here's my question. Are they going to spend before the guys get here, or are they going to spend after?
Oh, that's after.
You follow me? So in other words, do they have to wait and see if the players pan out and that they're legit before they spend, or do they assume that the players are legit and then spend in advance?
They're going to wait until they win the lottery ticket, and then they'll spend.
So this is my concern. What if these guys aren't as good as everyone thinks?
You're porked, capital P.
They'll never get to the point where they actually put the pieces around them. So this is one of the things that bugs me about this whole scenario, is this idea that the Red Sox, that you bring the kids up, and then when they're ready, you bring the talent in. What if the talent at that time is not available? What if the free agent market sucks? So I wanted the Red Sox to go out on the market last year, get some pitching. That way, when they started to integrate the talent, the pitching was already here. I would hope that that's how they plan to do it. But who knows? In Chicago, they added the pitching afterward. At least they added John Lester afterward. So when they were ready to sort of get over the top, but those guys were in the big leagues, I think, for a couple of years, some of those young guys, before the Cubs really started to take off. And then again, it came apart quickly in Chicago, and they only won the one World Series. And not to dump on them for it, but, it was a historic win. But it felt like that thing should have stayed together longer than it did. And it didn't. Here, with Bogarts, Betts, Devers, Bradley, that whole group, it should have lasted longer than it did. But they didn't sign Betts. They didn't sign Bogarts. The pitching deteriorated. They haven't replaced it. So, like, this next wave, really, there shouldn't be a gap anyway. The Red Sox, the quote-unquote bridge years, should be years where the Red Sox are competitive. They've been 500 for 6 years. I'm just not all that confident that this thing is going to come together the way everyone says it's going to. Oh, we'll spend when we're ready to spend. Well, again, what's to say that the players who are available at that time are players you really want to invest in? Last year's pitching market was good. It's a good pitching market. The Red Sox didn't get any of them. And I have a hard time believing they're going to go out and sign 30-year-old pitchers to these blockbuster deals when philosophically the owner is on record as saying he's against it, even though they did it for David Price after they let John Lester go. You follow me? They're kind of all over the place. It's just hard to know what's going to happen next. We'll take a couple of more of your calls. Before we even do that, can I ask you guys quickly, Kevin Majori, you were taking the calls back there. Did we have a guy call who said he doesn't have a radio and wanted to wait on hold just to listen to the show?
Yes.
Is that true?
Fact, not opinion.
And he was on for a little while to listen.
Yes.
Does he have a cell phone? I mean, can't he just get the app?
I think he called on a rotary phone.
Are you serious?
Maybe.
I wouldn't rule it out.
He was an older gentleman.
Okay, well, then in that case, he might not have a cell phone. Or if it is, it's a flip phone that he can't get the app on. I think you can still get a flip phone if you really want one.
Oh, I know somebody who has a flip phone.
It's crazy. Anyway, Mike in Buffalo. Mike, what do you got?
Oh, thanks, Tony. First time ever talking to you. I know you're the guy up there. Here's the thing I'm gonna say to you, and then I need your opinion. They'll draw over 90,000 for 3 games against Chicago, and everything and everybody they draft is a left-handed hitter. That's all, Tony. Thanks for taking my call.
Mike, thank you for the call, and I'm not sure I'm really the guy here. It depends what you may want. I may or may not be the guy. Yes, everything they have is a left-handed hitter. In fact, last night I was asking Jared Carabas of Underdog Fantasy. I was asking Jared about Mikey Romero. There was a story yesterday on Mass Live about Mikey Romero, who's another first-round pick, a shortstop that they took, who has developed this year. He'd had some injuries earlier in his minor league career. He looked like kind of a bust, for lack of a better word. And this year started to progress again, has now been promoted to Double-A. That happened after Marcelo Meyer got promoted to Triple-A. And Mikey Romero has had a good year in the minor leagues. First-round pick. Left-handed hitter. Another left-handed hitter. I've said this before. I'll say it again. If you're going to err on one side or the other, you'd rather have left-handers than right-handers in the batter's box. The majority of pitchers are still right-handed. They can't all be lefties. They can't. Eventually, someone's going to throw a lefty at you and figure out that you can't hit left-handed pitching, which is exactly what has happened this year, and you're going to lose those games, and you will have a vulnerability. The Red Sox had a vulnerability against left-handed pitching, at least a little one, back in 2018. They went out and got Steve Pearce at the deadline, made a massive difference. Now, look, they were loaded that year. It wasn't a glaring hole. This team has a glaring hole in the middle of the lineup for a right-handed bat. Massive. And again, I don't need to tell you. The Red Sox team that dominated for many years offensively in the early, I'll call it the early 2000s, 03, 04, through about 2013. For a good chunk of that time, they had David Ortiz and Manny Ramirez in the middle of the lineup. One left-handed, one right-handed. If you look at, say, the Houston Astros, Yordan Alvarez left-handed, Bregman Altuve right-handed. You've got some balance there. So that when you get to a key part in the game and the other team has to go to a matchup, they have to pick which one they're going to get pounded with. It's one or the other. You bring in a lefty, Manny Ramirez will hit him. You bring in a righty, David Ortiz will pummel him. You get the idea? Hard to do it. Hard to get through there when you've got left-right. It's a championship caliber lineup. The Red Sox have left-handed hitters coming out their ass in the minor leagues. That's presuming they all can hit, but let's say they can. And Romero, like Meyer, is a shortstop. Some people think that Romero could play second base, but you have Christian Campbell there who could also project at second base. He's right-handed, by the way.
Campbell, by the way, could play second, short, or center field.
Okay, but there's a redundancy in a lot of these places, a lot of these positions with some of the players you have there. Either they bat the same side or they play similar positions or both. In the case of Romero and Meyer, both are left-handed hitting shortstops. Someone's got to go.
Well, Meyer will be injured again next year, so you don't have to worry about him.
That could be, but again, Romero was injured all of last year, and maybe these are nothing. Injuries are hard to predict. Some guys get hurt in the minor leagues, never get hurt again. Some guys get hurt always throughout the course of their careers. Hard to predict. Bill's in Hingham. Bill, what do you got?
Yeah, Mazz, I just think you're preaching to the choir. Unfortunately, with the big three coming up the pipeline, the Red Sox, they're going to score runs. It's just going to come down to, are they going to make one or two moves to get a one or a two on that rotation? Otherwise, they're going to be just a step behind those top-tier teams in the MLB.
So, look, to me, again, that's what it comes down to, Bill. And I'm also interested in the order, the sequence of events. I just said this a second ago. So the whole idea of we'll spend when we're ready to contend. Well, so is that when the kids come up? Is that after the kids are established? And tell me what the free agent markets are going to look like at that time. And are the Red Sox then going to be willing to go on the free agent market? Because I think they have an aversion to signing pitchers who are over 30.
So, Tony, here's the compromise, because they've done this twice. You go and you trade for Pedro Martinez, and it hurts because Rose and Pavano were top prospects. Or you go and you trade for Josh Beckett, maybe a year or two early, and it costs you Hanley Ramirez. So maybe the best adventure, instead of signing A.J. Burnett in 05 or 06, whatever year it was, is you trade for Josh Beckett. You trade for the hot young pitcher, the kid from Detroit, who might be on the outs there because the Tigers might want to trade him or not, instead of signing Yamamoto. Maybe that's the way you do it. You have to trade prospects for the younger pitcher.
So, Jimmy, look, I'm all for the trades.
The Seattle thing we were talking about, where you trade Jarren Duran for one of the Seattle starting pitchers, whether Castillo or Kirby, one of those guys.
Okay, and again, I'm all for that too. Can they trade the right guys? Can they evaluate the right players and make the right trades?
Doubt it.
So this is something that should concern you. Again, when the Red Sox traded for Pedro, they wanted to, initially, Montreal wanted Carl Pavano and Brian Rose, who were the two Red Sox two best prospects at that time. The Red Sox said no. They eventually gave up Pavano and Tony Armas Jr.
Who they got from Mike Stanley, right?
I think that is right from the Yankees. It might have been another deal, Jimmy. I don't remember, but you might be right. So they had to pay a handsome price. It was worth every penny. Neither one of those guys panned out. So there was all this hype around Pavano, and the point is the Red Sox evaluated it properly. They got a stud for those pitchers. What if they get it wrong? What if the guy's not a stud and you give up someone who can play? Then it's a disaster. 617-779-0985. When we come back, I do want to touch on that Kyle Schwarber thing. We'll look ahead to the series with the White Sox as much as we can, and we'll wrap it up here on the Baseball Hour when we come back.
How difficult was this, just the road trip overall for you guys?
I suck, man. It was tough. I think we went to Detroit 2.5 games back, we're 3.5 games back, and now we're 5.5. We're playing 500. Like I said, right now we're just an average team. So we gotta show up on Friday and try to be better. It's a huge homestand, this one coming up.
They've all been big to now. Red Sox have failed miserably, but nonetheless, time for the Between the Limes baseball report. Brought to you by Corona, the official cerveza of Major League Baseball, with what to watch out for during this weekend's games. Enjoy the finer life of sports with Corona. Must be 21 plus. Relax responsibly. Corona Extra Beer, imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois. Here's what I would tell you with the White Sox coming to town. The White Sox, who suck historically bad. I say suck a lot. This team, redefines the term suck. It's not enough to say the White Sox suck. They are on the verge of becoming the worst team in baseball history. The worst record, worst winning percentage in baseball history. And before you get too geeked up about that, Chicago this season is 3-33 combined against Kansas City, Detroit, and Minnesota. This is the difference in the playoff race, is Chicago. 3-33 against those three teams. They're 2-2 against the Red Sox. So anything less than a sweep, frankly, would be an embarrassment. It's that bad with the White Sox, who are in a tailspin like you've never seen. I think they've lost something like 42 of their last 47 games or something ridiculous like that. Just keep that in mind. Secondly, and I want to do more on this, but I keep getting derailed with the Red Sox failures. Kyle Schwarber had a 3-home-run game the other night. Jim Murray pointed this out. I just wanted to mention it. Kyle Schwarber signed a 4-year contract with the Philadelphia Phillies a couple of years ago for $79 million. Left-handed hitting DH. He is entering... after he'll have 1 year left on the deal after this season. So he's played 3 years in Philly. 1 year after they let Schwarber go, the Red Sox signed Yoshida to 5 years for $90 million. Yoshida is now a DH. He's also left-handed. Jimmy, this is a rhetorical question, but answer it anyway. And I'll ask the fans out there, too. Who would you rather have, Kyle Schwarber or Yoshida?
Kyle Schwarber.
And the contract is less. Less. Unbelievable. What a colossal error in judgment. Again, those are the kinds of mistakes that A, get GMs fired, and B, leave you in a bad state as an organization. And I'm not telling you, Schwarber, maybe he didn't want to be here, whatever. I'm just telling you, he fit here as a DH anyway. And I would have, even if you had to play him at first for another year until Casas got here, you clearly gave no importance to defense anyway. What a colossal mistake that was.
And they still don't care about defense because they're leading baseball in errors.
True. Very good.
If they had league average defense this year, Tony, they might win 10 more games.
Interesting. I heard that somewhere before, Jimmy. I can't remember who said it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kevin Majori.
Full throttle to the finish line.
Kevin Majori's got your headlines. No commercials. Joe Murray has you tonight as the NFL season kicks off. It is Joe Murray tonight, correct? Oh, he's here. Okay.
Yes, he's right behind me. Tell me about his food locations.
We'll catch you tomorrow on a Roundtable Friday on the Baseball Hour.
WBC FM and HD Boston. We've got the Patriots covered.
Back to the home. He's in trouble. A sack.
It's an all-new season for the Pats, and you'll hear it all right here. 98.5, the Sports Hub, the Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines.
About a little over an hour away from the 2024 NFL season getting underway as the two-time defending world champion Kansas City Chiefs host the Baltimore Ravens. It's a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. Kickoff 8:20. The Chiefs also signed tight end Noah Gray to a 3-year, $18 million extension that includes $10.1 million fully guaranteed at signing. Patriots were back on the practice field today as they get set for their season opener in Cincinnati.